Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, and this is episode number 54. I'm your host, Rod Bloom, and joining me today is my good friend, John Brown. John, how are things going today?
I am doing awesome, Rod. How about you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing just great. I'm on vacation this week. I've got no complaints.
I thought I saw you were doing some yard work.
I've been doing a lot of yard work. Yeah, I worked worked in the yard pretty much from maybe 7:30 to about 4 o'clock today, just doing mulch and stuff like that. So just kind of taking my time. When you get to a certain age, you try to just kind of be smart about stuff and try not to kill yourself. So I'm drinking a lot of water, and it got pretty hot today too here. I'm sure it's probably the same down where you are. So
yeah, we had a steady stream of some rain and some storms, and it doesn't cool it down too much unless it's an intense storm. We had a pretty big storm come through here that cooled it down by 40 degrees in just a couple hours. That was a couple days ago, but we've been hanging around the 90s and 100s because of the humidity. But
yeah, we got pretty close to 90 today, I think.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was rough. That's why I was out early. I wanted to get as much done early as I could. Then I kind of slowed the pace down when it started getting hot. So we're gonna start this off just by doing our Blitz beverages. I know you went out and got a little something special today. Yep. So I'm gonna let you kick it off and talk about your beverage of choice for this evening.
I am drinking Left Hand Brewing Company Milk Stout Nitro. I stumbled across them years ago by accident. My favorite beer, which was at the time Goose Island Oatmeal Stout, just kind of disappeared. And so I was like, well, you know what? Hey, I'll try this. And I just instantly fell in love with it. It's smooth. It's got a great flavor. It's full, but it doesn't have an aftertaste. And because it's made with milk, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it. For a while, it was only available in limited states and things like that, but they've really branched out in terms of their distribution, and now you can find them pretty much everywhere. But it's just it's a great beer. But and I know for some people, stouts and some of those beers tend to kind of fall out of their wheelhouse, but for me, it's kind of just been my go-to. And hey, I figured, man, this is a special occasion, so I'm gonna do it right. I often refer to that beer as the nectar of the gods, and so I figured it was appropriate for this occasion.
Yeah, good choice. I think some people like those beers more in the wintertime, but everybody has their own individual taste.
Yeah,
we're talking earlier. Some people like the IPAs. I don't think either you or I are real big on the IPAs. They're like more of I like the Belgian style beers, but I like I'm good with porters and some stouts. Depending on the occasion and what I'm eating or I guess just what's going on. But yeah, whatever you like. That's what's great, especially right now. There's so many beers out there.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. I've been doing this podcast, really talking beers on podcasts for going on 2 years. And I try to drink a lot of different beers and I don't drink all the time. So I'm not somebody who goes out and tries 5 different beers every week, but I think I've tried quite a few different beers, and I go into beer stores and I look, and I swear I still don't know like 90% of the beers I see.
Yeah, it seemed like it became a trend. It became a kind of almost like a boom. It was almost like this. It was almost like the same as the .com industry. I mean, it really took off. I remember when I was still in the military, when I was stationed in Nebraska, there was a pizza place called Old Chicago's, and it was like 150 beers on tap and like 50 different bottled beers or some insanity like that. And the same thing when I lived in Austin, Texas. I mean, they had a place called, I think it was the Flying Saucer, and they had like, I don't know, 300 beers, on tap, right? And that's just an insane amount of beers. And, and of course they drum up business by saying, hey, if you try this many, you get a t-shirt or a free dinner or whatever. But I mean, yeah. I just go out, I go out and just have a beer with dinner or something like that. I'm not 20 anymore, so I just kind of have a beer to enjoy what I'm eating or relax for the evening, and that's about it.
Right. Well, back to that note on this being a special occasion. With this podcast, I get to do a couple things. I get to have just Browns fans on where I get to meet new friends, people that are just big Browns fans. And then I get to have people like you on occasionally who are people that I've talked to for a long time, had great conversations with, really feel like I know you and we've never even talked. So it's like I'm meeting a great friend for the first time, and yeah. I already know you. So
yeah, absolutely.
So it's a special occasion. So so I went with the Victory Golden Monkey, John, and it's one of my favorites. Everybody knows that these are kind of strong beers, so we'll see how I do through the podcast. It's just got a great flavor to it. It's like 9% alcohol, but I've had these a few times on the podcast, and I think I've probably got 6 of them out in the garage, in the fridge. So I have one occasionally. It's not a beer that I normally drink 2 of in a row just because of the strength of the alcohol, but one of my favorites. Just got a great flavor to it.
Yeah, and it's funny too because even though as much as I love drinking stouts and some of the porters, you get some of the other ones that like, for example, if you get into some of the imperial stouts or some of the Russian stouts and some of those, you get into like 10 and 12% alcohol, and they normally you'll tend to find them in sometimes 16 ounces or 20 ounce bottles. You drink one of those and you're pretty much set. I mean, and they're pretty rough, and on the flip side of that, they're very similar in some aspects to those. I don't know if you've tried any of these, but some of there'll be some of the ales that they'll make, and they'll brew them with bourbon, or so Kentucky has a lot of those, the bourbon barrel aged, some of these beers, and you drink those, and it's just like it's potent, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, this doesn't work for me. I mean, it just knocks your socks off just from flavor, alcohol content, the whole nine. And I do like bourbon or whiskey on occasion, but to drink it in a 12-ounce bottle, no.
It's rough, and I'm right there with you because I'm thinking back to around Christmas time. I ordered a beer out at dinner, and it sounded like a Christmas ale with all these different flavors in it. And I ordered it, and when it came, it tasted like the beer you're describing, like a beer with a shot of whiskey in it or bourbon, where the bourbon or whiskey, whatever flavor it was just overpowering, and I felt like I was drinking a whole bottle of whiskey. And honestly, I couldn't finish it. I mean, I got a 12-ounce glass of this, and I drank probably 10 ounces of it, and I'm like, man, I'm done. And the worst part was, it was supposed to have all these different flavors in it, clove and all these other things in it, and cinnamon and everything. I couldn't taste any of them. All I could taste was the liquor.
Yeah, it's weird because I think a lot of times you see with some of these microbrews, especially some of these, and I don't know if it's from, as you branch out into a new industry or whatever, and you try to make your own niche, you'll see a lot of these people that are like, oh, hey, I got to have a beer that appeals to everybody as opposed to just specializing. So they try to do too much. And then you start getting into all these just flavored beers and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, whatever happened to just like the basic concepts of beer? But now you've got like, a good example, you use Christmas and you've got candy cane, eggnog beer, and all these other, insane things. And you're just like, man, let's just stick with the basics. And so it's kind of that's become the interesting thing about beer, I think, in terms of how things have trended and over the last, I would say 20 to 25 years. I mean, a lot of the fruit flavored beers that started coming out and, all these different types of things. And that's where it started becoming almost like too much.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that started pretty much with the pumpkin beers. And those were good at first, but after a while, when everybody had to put one out, it's like, I don't need to try all of these. I've had one; they're pretty much all the same, and then it gets to a point where you really don't need to try every single different flavor in a beer. You get to know what you like, and some of the flavors are very good in a beer, some aren't. It kind of just depends what you like.
There was I referenced that the pizza place in Omaha, Nebraska, and I remember one time I was there with one of my military buddies, and they had a beer called, and it was made, and I think it's from Cave Creek, and I think the brewing company is Cave Creek, and I think it's based out of Cave Creek, Arizona, I think, but it was called Cave Creek Chili Beer, and I thought, I'm having a burger, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a beer that sounds like you have a burger with chili. Yeah. No. It was made with chili. So it was made with chili peppers, and the farther you got into the beer, the hotter it got. And it became more and more painful. And it got to the point where I was like about halfway through the bottle, and I was like, okay, I just need to chug this, and if I chase it with a shot of whiskey, I'll probably be better off at this point. And I will never forget that. That happened roughly 24 years ago, and I will never. Not only will I never forget drinking that beer, I will never drink that beer again. But I was just like, wow. I mean, and like you said, I mean, everybody tastes things differently. To somebody else, that beer probably tastes like the greatest beer on the planet. But I was just like, wow, whose idea was this? How did this pass quality assurance? This is not very good. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Hey, let's talk about you and your journey as a Browns fan, because I think most everybody knows you've lived a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Let's hear how you got to be a Browns fan. Just a little bit about how it came to be, some of your early memories, early thoughts, and some of your favorite players, things like that.
Oh wow. Let's see. I'll be 52 in October. I've moved roughly 72 or 3 times in my life. I've lived in, I think, 10 or 11 states, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 15, 20 different cities. So I've just experienced a lot of different environments in that aspect, but Ohio was home. I was born in Ohio. I was born in Columbus. I was born into an old family. My parents were born in the 20s. And my brother was 20 years older than I was, and I didn't, and there was nobody in between. So I came along. I was a shock to the family, but being born into that family, I grew up, with my dad and my brother just telling me all these stories of reverence of Paul Brown and Jim Brown and Paul Warfield and Otto Graham, and it was just neat to hear these stories about how they held on to those memories. And my dad and my brother weren't close, but that was their bond. They would go up to the old stadium and sit in the cold and watch the games, and my dad used to tell me, oh man, this is Jim was so fun to watch because he would do this, and I remember as a little kid, we moved away from Ohio when I was 4, but I can remember being as young as about 3, sitting on his lap watching football games, on Sundays, and my dad wasn't a loud, boisterous, cheering, rooting, and hollering. My brother was, but it was fun in that sense. Those are the memories that I hang on to in that sense. And so, I mean, they raised me that, you bleed brown and orange, and and conversely, I mean, college, you bleed scarlet and gray, and I've always held on to that. I mean, that's and of course, growing up in Ohio, most people that you tend to be around, tend to share a lot of the same, fandom. Most of the people in my family were Browns fans, Ohio State fans. There's a couple of problem children there. We had a couple of Wolverine fans that just like to be difficult. A couple of Bengals fans that like to be difficult, and it's like I always tell everybody. I mean, I'm older than the Bengals, so and we share the same number of Super Bowl trophies between me and them. So but I mean, I grew up with listening to just all these amazing stories of Cole Municipal Stadium, and watching Jim Brown just grind out yardage, and watching Paul Warfield make these amazing catches, and watching Otto Graham lead these game-winning drives, and of course for me, I'm in the 70s era of the Browns, and and it was a struggle, but I mean, I've always been loyal. I believe in being loyal to my teams. And now when we left Ohio, we moved to Minnesota, and I got to experience the Purple People Eaters, but I still hung on to being a Browns fan, and moved to California in the late 70s, and out there, of course, there's a lot of championships out there. You had the Niners, you had the Raiders. And of course, so I was always made fun of. Of course, there was Red Right 88 and all of these things that I had to suffer through the high school years. I mean, I can tell you exactly where I was the day, where I was when I watched the drive. I can tell you my reaction. We were living in Fresno, California, 639 West Donner. I was a junior in high school, and my reaction when they lost that game was like I punched a hole in the closet door that I don't think my parents ever found out, because I never heard about it. But I grew into that kind of that volatile, energetic person of watching games that became very passionate and very emotional about games and winning and losing. I remember, I had, this is a long time ago. I don't know, it's been about maybe 7-8 years, but I was interviewed by a person who was ironically writing their thesis on the Browns. And they were interviewing Browns fandom, and I don't remember exactly what the purpose of their thesis was, but I got interviewed, and I remember, the question was asked, what would it mean if the Browns won a Super Bowl? And I think that resonates with everybody in such an emotional way that, just as I started to think about what that person had asked me, tears filled my eyes, and the thought seems so far away, but and it's just that thing of it's like I've always said, the team that brings a championship to the city for the Browns they're never going to buy another meal in town again. They'll never buy a drink. I mean, people will probably try to buy their houses for them. It just means that much to Northeast Ohio. I mean, and I'll be honest, I'm not moving to California in the 70s. I became a San Francisco Giants fan. I became a Lakers fan, and I've stayed with them. But I cheer for the Cavs and the Indians to support my Browns friends, because the Browns mean more to me than anything. I'm very passionate about them, and maybe because the struggle has been so long. But it's that thing of like I said, even though the Cavs won the NBA championship, it's like I've always said, the day the Browns win the Super Bowl, I don't think people will forget, but that will take precedent. I mean, Ohio is a football state. Cleveland is a football town. It's blue collar. The Browns, are the heart and soul of that city. And I think winning would mean everything. And I've kind of always just hung on to those energies. I didn't watch football for 4 or 5 years when the team moved. When the team came back in '99, I've still got the sweatshirt that I bought. as soon as they hit the shelves, I've still got it. I've cheered loudly. I was living in California. This was 2012, and on my birthday, the Browns were playing the Bengals, and I was living in Napa at the time. And my girlfriend, who is now my wife, she's like, "Hey, let's go, find a place to watch the game." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "We got to do Buffalo Wild Wings." I mean, that's kind of like my Ohio stopping spot, I guess you could say, in other states. So we went to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the game, and we're in there, and I am cheering loud, and I am screaming and hollering, and we're beating the Bengals, and I'm like, and it's my birthday. So some dude from the other side of the bar comes over, and he's wearing I can't remember. He was a Falcons fan. I can't remember what he was wearing. He was wearing a jersey, but he was a Falcons fan. He comes over and he goes, "Man," he goes, "you are a loud and proud Browns fan." He goes, "I didn't even know you all existed." And he shook my hand and bought me a drink. And and so, and that's the way I've always been. I mean, I believe in supporting the team. I'm just like everybody else. I get angry, I get frustrated, I get sad. Every year feels like you're starting over. But I've got friends that were Browns fans, and they went and now they're Pittsburgh fans. Now they're fans of whoever, and I'm just like, I can't do it. I'm loyal. I believe in staying loyal. I believe in supporting them. When the payoff comes, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth the pain. I mean, the wife and I have an agreement that the day the Browns make the Super Bowl, she's going to let me go. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if she still remembers that agreement. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy journey, and I think it has been for everybody. Unless you're 75 or 80 years old, you really don't remember consistent winning, and so, But I think I think it's neat that a lot of the guys from the 80s and the early 90s are, they're involved on Twitter. I love seeing Eric and Bernie and Ernest and these guys be involved in Twitter. And talk with the fans and engage with the fans and that kind of thing. That right there shows the connection and the bonds of the city and the football team. And so I was a big Clay Matthews guy. I was a big Eric Metcalf guy. E-Rock, Eric Turner was my guy. I was really brokenhearted when he passed away. I actually wrote a poem. I wish I still had it, but this was back in the old Cleveland Browns website when they still had I think it was Dog Talk, I think, the forum that they had, the chat forum that they had on there, and his family members were regularly involved on that chat board. And when I wrote that poem and posted it, they came to me and asked me if they could use it at his funeral. And I said, please do, And so I was honored that they did that, and it was a bittersweet thing. I mean, it's neat that they were willing to do that and that kind of thing. But it was sad that I had to write something like that for such a young guy and such a great football player. But yeah, I mean, I still hold on to the old guys. I mean, because that's what I relate to, and that's the young guys. A lot of this core foundation. I mean, I think that there's the potential for greatness in a lot of these guys, and so. It's going to be fun to see what happens as we go forward with this organization and with this franchise. New regime. So, hopefully brighter days ahead for everybody.
Wanted to take a second to welcome our new sponsor, T-Shirt Hooligan. You can find them on Twitter at Hooligan T-Shirt, or go directly to the website tshirthooligan.com. You can find links on our Twitter account at the Browns Blitz. My personal favorite is the Airbnb. That's Baker to Beckham. And stay tuned. We are going to be introducing some T-shirt giveaways. We will have details on that coming up. And now back to the action. At this point, those guys from the 80s are kind of what we're still holding on to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
it's
the last
closest we've been to seeing greatness.
Yeah.
So,
and if you think about it,
they're a great bunch of guys. So.
And if you think about it in the sense of, the last good team we've seen, if you go with the modern era of Browns football, I mean, 2007? When we went 10-6 and didn't make the playoffs. You know,
yeah.
and we haven't put consistent winning football on the field in 20 years, and it's that era of of 80s football when we were always at the cusp, we were always right there at the edge, and just kept missing out, that's kind of a it seems like anytime they ever show an old Browns football game, it's like I'll be like, oh, they're showing a Brown, you'll hear somebody say, oh, they're showing the Browns on such and such, and you turn it on and it's the drive. It's like it's the only thing that they still have on video or something. I'm like, will you please show something else?
Every time they show highlights of a guy from another team, they show him against the Browns.
And then on the flip side of that, there's all the players who were good somewhere else and came to Cleveland and forgot how to play football, or they were useless here and they went somewhere else and won a world championship. They went and won a Super Bowl, and you're just like, is there something in the water in Cleveland? What are we doing?
Definitely gone both ways a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, so it's been frustrating on so many different levels. I mean, the players who were great in college and they end up in a Cleveland uniform, and and they're whether it's the Braylon Edwards of the world or the Kellen Winslow's, it's kind of a dirty name right now all of a sudden, but and you're just like, how do these great players end up in Cleveland and forget how to play football? There's just been, and the same thing with coaches. I mean, how do we just keep recycling coaches? And so yeah, it's been a crazy path, and I know for a lot of the Browns fandom and a lot of the people that are on Twitter, I mean, I know a lot of these people are from Northeast Ohio, and that's everything to them. I mean, and so I can't even relate to it in that sense. So I know that it's passionate for so many people, and it's important for so many people, and it holds people together for good reasons in some aspects. But I think probably my favorite memories in the modern era was I was there the first time I was in Cleveland the first time we beat Baltimore, and so that was a great thing to be there and be a part of, and I shared that opportunity. I shared that with my brother. Before I lost him. So, so it's those memories that are special to me that I hang on to, and that's what's always going to make Browns football so important to me is the memories of my family and how I've been able to hang on to that stuff for going forward. My wife, ironically, she this is how awesome she is. She was a Patriots fan, and she gave them up to support the Browns for me, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, what are you, insane?
That was pretty nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I think you touched on a very important thing there when talking about your family, and I think the Browns being a generational thing. It gets. We talk about it being in our blood and bleeding orange and brown, but to me, it's more than that. When people are from northeastern Ohio and their parents and grandparents live there, and they're like yourself that grew up hearing stories, it's really just a part of you, and to give it up just seems impossible.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. I mean, the thought, even like, God, when the team moved and so many people were so angry and so brokenhearted, the thought never, ever occurred to me, not even for a brief second, to go support another team. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, any of these other teams, Baltimore, I know people that went with the team, went with cheering the team and supporting the team to Baltimore. I'm like, nope, I'm cheering for Cleveland, or I'm not cheering for anybody. And I remember when when the NFL awarded the team, back to Cleveland, and I was just, I just remember being in tears, and I was just like, man, this is,
Yeah.
And granted, it hasn't been all, it hasn't been what we expected, especially when you see the success of a lot of the other expansion franchises of the last couple of decades, and but all you can do is continue to support the team as best you can. I mean, I don't think I don't think there's cause for blind loyalty. I think we have a right to be upset or disappointed or angry. Though I've never booed the team. I would never do that either. I mean, I support them wholeheartedly, but I remember I would go to the games and some of the games would. I mean, I just sat up there and just watched us get whooped a couple of times, and we were in 2007. I went to opening day, and we were just getting stomped by Pittsburgh, and we got into the second half, and every time we would get the ball, I just kept yelling punt. I didn't care if it was first down. I was just like, hey, you're probably just going to throw an interception anyway. So yeah, it was just it's just our way of trying to have fun. I mean, at that point in time, I mean, I'm not going to be miserable. I mean, yeah, and I sat through every single second. I wouldn't leave early. I paid for these tickets. I'm gonna, but I'm out there yelling Chris Gardocki for the Pro Bowl, and and I was just like, hey, I might as well make the best of this while I'm here. So, just try to have fun and make the best of it and enjoy it. I mean, because that's at the end of the day, it's just a game. I mean, and so it is our distraction from life, so to speak, in some aspects. But
yeah. And people get tied up in the fact that the Browns have been bad for so long and we've had all this bad luck and everything. But you still have to keep in mind that things can be turned around pretty quickly. Teams in the season, teams can make the playoffs. I think teams can pretty much go from any record to the playoffs in a season or two. So there's really no reason to not believe that the Browns are ever more than a couple seasons away from possibly being in the playoffs.
Well, and I think it's that aspect of, it's catching that lightning in a bottle at the right moment in time. We saw it with the Rams, under Kurt Warner. I don't think anybody expected that, and they became the greatest show on turf. And you see a lot of these different types of things, and on the flip side of that, in the modern era, we have become such an instant gratification society that people have lost the ability to exercise patience. And so when you keep hitting the reset button every couple years, the struggle just becomes you're perpetually. I mean, you're just basically doggy paddling through quicksand, And
you keep putting yourself back at the starting line over and over and over again.
And even if you go down through history, and sure, times have changed, talent levels have changed, the games have changed, and things like that. But I mean, even the greats, if you go back through, whether it's the Bill Belichick's or the Tom Landry's or the Chuck Knowles or the Bill Walsh's, a lot, these struggled. They struggled at times, and the games have changed, coaching has changed. I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, now again we hit a reset button again this off season. Do we stay the course, exercise some patience for 3 years, 4 years? If things don't go as planned. I mean, so that's the thing. You have to trust the system. I mean, any other industry, any other business, I guess you say, outside of the sports world, you have to be, exercise that due diligence and kind of go from there. But it's been frustrating to say the least. But I'm still proud. I'm still proud to be a Browns fan. I wear my colors. I've got stickers on my vehicle. I have no fear in that aspect of, I'll support I'll support them till the day I die.
Same here, John. You and I have had a lot of great conversations about some other things. I think probably when we first started talking, I think maybe writing was one of the first things we actually started talking about.
I think so. Over the years, I guess I became a lot more, I guess you could say, willing to put myself out on the ledge in terms of kind of, I guess you could say, burying my soul in some aspects. Because a lot of times what I do write I'm either writing about what I'm thinking about the world, or I'm thinking about what's going on in my life, or a relationship aspect, or something. And it, more often than not, it deals with my own sadness or my anger or my joy, or but that's how I deal with my emotions. In recent years, it's become writing a lot about the ocean, because that's where I found a lot of solitude, and it's like I tell people, that became my church. And so, yeah, I started putting bits and pieces of writing out there, or my website where I posted all my writing and things like that. And I know you and I started sharing a lot of stuff back and forth. And I think the thing is, you sense, I guess for a lack of a way to capture, a way to say it would be, you get a different sense of a person when you, not just talking to them, but then when you start to see their how they channel emotion, whatever emotion that may be, whatever energy that may be. And so, and you find a bond, you find an additional bond that you have a shared aspect of how you can relate to another individual. And so you get a different window into who they are. You get a different sense of their approach to dealing with their life, or their thought process on, handling, whether it's pain, loss, grief, whatever. And a lot of times that'll strengthen bonds. You don't just get connected to this person, because now you've opened up who you are to this individual. You get a greater sense of them as a person. And I think there's true value in that, that you don't get a lot of times at the very base level of, a 240 character tweet.
100%. Yeah, and when did you really start writing?
Oh, wow. Well, I've written in a lot of different mediums, and by that I mean, when I went to college in the 80s, I was going to school for theater and film, and so I was writing screenplays. I could always, in some sense, visualize things differently, or and so I would write screenplays, but then I started, when I got into the military in the 90s, I started channeling some of my different energies, being away from my dad, who was like my best friend at the time. So as opposed to going to the grocery store and buying him a Hallmark card, I would write him a poem. And that's how I started. That's how I started relating to people. That's how I started putting things into a different way of expressing myself. And so it became easier and easier and easier over time. And that was just, a lot of times, it's I tell a lot of people that, I guess it doesn't take practice, so to speak. Words are free, they're limitless. There's just a plethora, of things that you can create in that sense of capturing an image. You can capture a moment in time. You can capture a feeling. And so to be able to put these things down on paper became a way of channeling things for me. And so I've probably got about somewhere between 200 and 250 things I've put on paper that I still have. I haven't put all of them out into the public space, but because I do go back and I revisit my writing, because sometimes it maybe helps me look at things differently. But I'll go back and read something and say, "Wow, this is crap."
Yeah, I've been there.
And at the same point in time, and I'm being honest, there will be times I'll write back and I'll go, "Wow, this is good."
Did I write that?
And I'm like, and then it's like, I don't really remember writing this. I mean, it's got my name on it, but and then they're on the flip side of that is there are things I write and I go back and go, oh yeah, I remember exactly where I was when I wrote this, and that's the other thing too. So I can go back now and look at things that I've written, and there's a historical context. There's a timeline that tracks kind of through my life, losing my mom, losing my brother, losing my dad, relationship issues, just all these different types of things. And I have a window into myself too. I can now go back and go, oh, wow, yeah, I guess I can see now why I think this, or why, these different types of things. And so it gives me the opportunity to analyze things differently. And the same thing with when you give me something that you've written, and I can sit there and look at it and kind of just get a different feel for who you are as an individual. And I like that. And there are a couple other people on the Browns forum and then on Twitter and that write and it's the same thing. You can sit there and read what they have to say, and you can get a different you just get a different feel. You get a different energy, and it allows you to connect in a different way that I think a lot of people may not necessarily understand or experience if they don't write. But it's on the flip side of that, you have people that do it through music, and I know there's some people like that in the Browns universe too. So
Definitely.
and that's why, when, like, for example, with your Etsy store, the stuff that you and your wife are doing, I love to see that creativity come out from not only, yourself, but her as well. And for you to put your writing out there and that's a risk that a lot of people aren't willing to take. And, but that's the thing, you have to, to be great, you have to be willing to take that risk. And, and I'll be honest, I mean, I wouldn't buy something if I didn't think it was good either. So when I bought, the thing that you wrote, your ball of yarn or ball of string, and I have that framed, that's going in my man cave because I like reading it, and I've read it multiple times. I break it down. I look at it from different perspectives. And so it gives me a different way of looking at things. And I think there's value in that I think everybody can take away. Even if they don't write in some aspects, if it's just reading and understanding another person. But I think when you write and you reach out to somebody else that writes, I think there's a different connection in that sense.
Yeah, that's something you and I have definitely shared. I mean, I think that, I think I started as a writer going through a lot of the same things that you talked about. I really started with my poetry going through my divorce when my mom passed away, when my dad passed away. That's when I really turned to writing. I would just kind of I would just go in my bedroom, get on the computer, play some music, and I would just write. And and just kind of turn everything inward and just kind of start putting stuff down, and it was therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Some of it was probably crap. Some of it, I can look at now and yeah, it was probably not great, but it's what I needed right then.
Yep.
Some of it is like you say. Some of it I look at it and I'm like, wow, that was pretty darn good. Some of the stuff I wrote, I'm pretty proud of, and that's the stuff I've put out on Etsy. So that I want to share with people. Hopefully they'll people see the value of it. But it's got to be the right person. But writing really helped me through some tough times, and but those tough times made me a writer. I wouldn't be the writer I am without doing that poetry. I wouldn't have considered myself a writer and started writing sports articles if I hadn't written all that poetry, I don't think. So it's funny how things kind of change your, it's funny what affects your life and the direction your life takes.
Oh, absolutely. And and I think it's funny too, because, I'd long heard, people kept telling me, and it was, it was either family or close friends, the people that know you a lot of times. And I kept hearing, hey, you should write a book, and I was like, about what? People are like, just, you have a story to tell. And I'm like, well, what is it? What is my story? And I kept going, and finally, after I lost my dad, I think that was the closure that kind of finally opened up, the thought process to go, well, maybe I do have a story to tell. And, and even if it's something that, even if, and it's not, for me, it's not about making money. I'm not looking at it in that aspect. I'm not looking at writing a New York Times bestseller, but it was about channeling my energy and my emotions and the lessons I've learned in life through all the things that I've been through. I've lost all my family. I've been in the military. I mean, just so many different aspects of things that there are valuable lessons that you can learn from situations and scenarios or other people or whatever the case may be. And so I put it all down on paper, and I turned around and I went, okay, and I gave it to family and friends and just for them to get even, I guess you could say, an even a greater understanding of how I look at life, or the things that I've learned, or why I'm the way I am. Some people may say good, some people may say bad, but and that's the thing too. I mean, because I also look at it in the aspect of, if what I wrote, if I turn around and give that to one person and it helps them get through something in their life and it makes their life better, it was worth it. Then I helped somebody. I helped somebody get somewhere better in life. And I think there's, you can't put value on that. That's priceless. And so, those are the types of things I try to look at, and because I have experienced a lot of grief, in some aspects, there's no right way to grieve. And for a lot of people, I think they put it down on paper, and, or in song, I've kind of done that too. So, it's different stuff like that. And so, and it's interesting, Rod, because, some of the things that, you and I have talked about, we have been down such similar paths. And so I think that's why there's a lot of relatability in that aspect. I've been divorced, I've, lost my parents and things like that. And so, and to be able to write and things like that. So, and you and I are basically the same age. And so there's that familiarity of being around the block a time or two.
Yeah. You've just moved a few more times than me, John. Quite a few.
I've moved basically more than everybody else I know combined. I mean, it's crazy.
I'd have to count up, and I'm probably somewhere around maybe 10 times in my whole life.
Yeah, it's insane. I've literally moved across country, I think 3 or 4 times. My shortest move was literally moved from one apartment to the next door apartment. I moved out of a 1-bedroom into a 2-bedroom. that was the easy one. I mean, I just had to drag stuff down the hallway. So yeah.
You can check out Father's Day gifts and other gifts from our sponsor, Skippin' Stones. Find them at Etsy.com. Just search for the store Skippin' Stones, SKIPPINSTONEZ. Those gifts would include the poem that John was talking about, the string to ball. Also find lava bracelets and some other items, including for the ladies, handmade stone shell sea glass jewelry and pebble art and yoga bracelets. And now back to the conclusion of the podcast. Yeah, I mean, loss is tough. Loss, it's hard to deal with, but it just becomes a part of you after a while, and you just have to go on. I don't know if that if the loss we've experienced in our lives makes us better Browns fans or not.
Different
kind of loss, totally. But
it's weird too, because you establish these different types of bonds, and of course with family it's different, with friends it's different. I lost my mom as a kid. I was 13, but and so, but she was all I really knew. My dad was always out working and things like that, and putting food on the table and doing the best he could. But he was kind of almost like a stranger to me, I guess you could say. So when and my brother was around, I guess you could say in passing here and there, and of course he was an adult. He was 20 years older than I was, but and so when I lost her, it was like, wow, this is my world, now what? And it was kind of like getting to know my dad, and then and getting to know my brother, and trying to understand these types of things. And as they became valuable pieces of my life, and my brother and I became really close, then I lost him. And then when I moved back to California in 2014 to be with, she's not, the woman who's not my wife, Stephanie. I moved back to California in 2014. I hadn't been in California 3 weeks, and my dad passed away. And I moved back to be closer to him, and I guess if anything, I look back and say, I'm thankful that I was able to be there. And a lot of people say, hey, he was waiting on you. He wanted to know that you were ready and that you were here, and so it was kind of dealing with that, and I think there was, and it did create some sense of closure, because I didn't get to say goodbye to my mom. I didn't get to say goodbye to my brother, but I was at my dad's bedside, and to be able to talk to him and be there for him. So it gave me a sense of understanding of grieving, and in a different context. Yeah. And it felt like, this was how it was supposed to happen. And then 5 months later, in a tragic accident, my wife lost her 4-year-old grandson. And it was a scenario that neither of us were ready to deal with. I was still kind of grieving my dad, and it was just such a raw situation. And I think one of the most gut-wrenching things I ever dealt with was have to be at her side and to have to go and identify a person's body. And so it's putting those types of things into a level of humanity and understanding people at their rawest, and being there for somebody. And it was hard for me to be there in that sense. And so, what I did was I did what I know how to do. I wrote a song about him. Well, it was a set of lyrics, to be honest. I wrote just a set of lyrics, and I happened to just give them to a friend who's a phenomenal musician. Well, he went and got the guitarist for my old band, and they went and got a few other people, and they turned it into a song, and they recorded it, and they came back with it about a month later, and they didn't tell me they were doing it. They all of a sudden just hit me with this out of the blue, and I was blindsided in such an amazing emotional way. But that's how I know how to deal with things, is to put things in that's my, I wouldn't say coping mechanism, but maybe that's probably, I guess, a way of saying it. But it was trying to capture something, important and valuable and personal, and capture it for not only my wife but her daughter, and to capture this bright shining star that was her grandson, and give them something valuable that'll always exist, that'll always be timeless, and nobody can ever take that away. And so those are the important things, I think, that we all have to kind of hang on to as people, are those kind of moments, good or bad, because they make us who we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can add to that, but yeah, very well said. Yeah. I'm kind of speechless after that, John.
I'll post the link. It's actually, because the song's actually out on YouTube that my buddy Ryan wrote, and I'll post the link out there for you guys, and so you can check it out. And my wife's grandson Brendan, he was this phenomenal bright shining star, and he loved trains, and but he was kind of scared of the dark. So what I did was I said, okay, what can I do? How can I write this about him? So what I did was I took his fear of the dark away, and I made him the engineer on a train. I gave him his power. I put him in charge of the things that he loved most, and that's what I wrote it around. And so yeah, I mean, I try to make sure I was paying the best respect that I could pay him, because he deserved that. He deserved that. And so did they. So did my wife. So did her daughter. And so did their family as a whole. So, but yeah, it was crazy times. I mean, to deal with that across a 6-month time frame, and for as difficult as it was for both myself and Stephanie, I mean, I think if anything, it's kind of made us stronger through it all, because when you power through all that sadness and negative energy, or however you want to look at it, that's when you grow together. So
yeah.
And music helps too. I mean, music does. I mean, the fact that my friends were able to turn that into a song and create something powerful and beautiful, and music helps heal with a lot of people, and certainly that I think there was substance there in that aspect as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you'll post the link. Let's put your Twitter handle out there.
Yeah.
At this point, John.
It is Dog Pound Surf. DWGPND Dog Pound Surf.
And answer this for me: is your book still available?
I mean, I've actually, to be quite honest, it's just a Word document.
Okay.
It's 200 and I don't know, it's 225 pages or something like that. It's a Word document. It's like, I don't know, it's 20 chapters, I think, of just the different stuff that I've been through, and there's some
publish it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pictures, and there's some, some of my writing is in there, some poetry, some of those types of things, and I've got it floating around somewhere. I think I've got it in my email.
Okay. So it's not published, but it's available for the right person.
Yeah, I mean, I basically, I mean, I think what I've done in the past is, like, if people wanted to read it, I asked them for their email address, and then I just email it to them, and so, yeah.
Well, I will give you my email address.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look at it. That would be great.
And I know there's there's a handful of people on the Browns Twitter crew that have it and have read it or read part of it. So.
Yeah, not everybody's going to make it through all 200 pages. You never know.
It's a pretty easy read. It's funny because my wife's a speed reader. She read it in like an hour. She's like, and I was like, and of course, she's my toughest critic. She's my biggest fan, but she's like, yeah, it's all right. I'm like, well, you knew all this stuff anyway, so you know how the story ends.
Yeah, you're like, you put all that work into it, and she read it in an hour. Wow.
Well, and I think the other thing is because there's a chapter in there about her as well. So, and I think that's the other thing too. I mean, nobody wants to hear, somebody put them on a pedestal and pat them on the back and all these types of things, which is kind of what I did. But, yeah. I mean, and she tends to be a lot. She's a little more private than I am. I'm pretty open. I don't really have much of a filter. I think most people have figured that out.
Yeah. Well, John, it's been great talking to you. I would.
I think I lost you.
Whatever kind of thoughts you want to leave everybody with.
Oh, I mean, Rod, I've never done this before, so this is my first time doing this, but, I really appreciate, you having me on, and I went through and listened to, Coach and Ray and some of the others, and it's kind of neat to hear that aspect of who they are, and I know it's kind of a weird time for all of us with, with everything that's going on, no sports to talk about. So it's kind of strange, but yeah, I mean, I think, again, there's that Twitter crew out there has really become, a really good group of people for me, a good sounding board, making friends, the people that you look forward to meeting and hanging out with, and I've met a few of the people. Rob Zaleski, in his, I think his Twitter handle. I don't think he's changed it, because I know some people have changed theirs, but it's like ROBZIE _ I think. But Rob's a good guy. I met him when I was in Austin. And then
yeah, he seems like a real nice guy.
And then Hawaii Browns, Huey. Mike is a really good dude. I've met him a couple times. Or I met him in Hawaii, last 2 times ago when we were out, and then this last time I'm out, him and I went out surfing, and
nice.
him and I have exchanged texts a couple of times, and he's checked in on me a couple of times, and I think that speaks volume about people. I think you were the first person to do that. Was, hey, here's my number if you need anything, and that showed. And it's interesting because when I deal with stuff, and again, I do tend to be kind of public at times when I'm ranting and raving or whatever, but for people that I don't truly know to reach out and show more care and compassion than the people that have known me 20, 30 years, there's that says a lot about, the people that I've been choosing to surround myself with. And so that, that becomes, I think that's one of the things that makes Twitter an enjoyable experience is you make connections with people that become genuine, so yeah, and so it's and I go through my phases. There are times where I need to just step away and take some time, whether it's to spend it with the family or to just get away from the insanity that takes place in the Twitter world, whether it's sports related or real world issues or whatever. And
yeah, I've been known to do that.
Yeah, and there's so many good people out there on the Twitter crew with Coach and Slim and Lisa and Ray and a lot of these people that just have that they really bring good value and humanity to your interactions. And so to all you Browns people out there, you guys are all awesome people. I appreciate interacting with so many of you, and I look forward to meeting all of you one of these days. The Browns play in Jacksonville this year. That's right up the street from us.
That would be great. That's when you're having the pool party, right?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's going to be well, and it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out as the football season goes forward, if the schedules change and things like that. It's kind of interesting because as of right now, that weekend is the same weekend as the Buckeye Wolverine game, and so that Saturday is Ohio State Michigan, and then the next day is the Browns up in Jacksonville, and so and I haven't seen the Browns play in person since 2007, so I was always just missing them for one reason or another, and so that opportunity. And like I said, I invited everybody. I said, hey, if there's a Browns game, if the Browns, if the football season goes off as we all want it to, and we get ready to be able to, to have the schedule fall into place the way we want it to, and everything, I'm gonna open up the doors to all my Browns family to come down here and for us to all go and enjoy some football. And the only disclaimer is that it's right at the end of hurricane season.
Yeah, be careful.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I hope my house is still standing.
Yeah, there's quite a few variables between now and then, huh?
Oh yeah, crazy times.
Yeah. Well, John, it has been it's just been a lot of fun. It's been really great talking to you.
Rod, again, thanks for having me on. I mean, again, hopefully in the future, I'd love to get on. And I'm not into all the X and O's like, a lot of the guys. And I just kind of watch from a high level perspective and from a fan's perspective. And I know a little bit here and there, but would love to get on and, talk Browns football one of these days. And I think it'd be a good time.
We will do that. We will definitely have you back on a podcast that is more football centric. We have plenty of those coming. So yeah, we will have you on, definitely. But I appreciate you talking with me, and we're gonna scoot on out of here. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.
Dog pound!